Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is doing amazing. Hi to my new subscribers as well. I'm Yolande. Today I'm going to do a review. Today's review is going to be Queen and Slim. I know this film has been out in the US for about 2 months now, but it's recently just come to the UK, so it's been in cinemas for about 2 weeks. So basically this film is about a man and a woman that's gone on a Tinder date, and it's taken like an interesting turn. So Queen is the woman, the main woman character, and Slim is the main male in the film. Okay, so they go on a Tinder date, and I don't think they have the best time. They're traveling home from the date together, and they get pulled over by a police officer. Things escalate, and in self-defense, Slim, the man, ends up shooting the police officer, where they then decide they're gonna have to go on the run. It's gone viral because it's been recorded again on one of those dashboard cameras, so you see the footage of what happens and it's all over the news. They go on the run, and the first kind of major stop you see them have is at Queen's uncle's house, who is Uncle Earl. Uncle Earl is a very interesting character. First of all, Uncle Earl is a pimp. So when they get to that Uncle Earl's house, he lives in a very big house, and the house looks like a family home. His family, Uncle Earl, is surrounded by women who work for him, so these are women that he pimps and so on. I think usually you would see like a household with a pimp and women, and you'd feel like a kind of oppression, but I don't feel in that household anyone seemed oppressed. They just had a very like unconventional, weird family dynamic. Some of them got on, some of them didn't get on. They all had different relationships. So there's one of the women who, she seems to be the favorite. She's very gentle, she's very loving, she seems very understanding, and you see her tend to be more near Uncle Earl's side a lot. Also, when Queen and Slim first get to the house, Uncle Earl was very standoffish in regards to not wanting them to stay, and this girl is the one that said, go on, like, let them stay, and he listened to her. You don't really see that where you have the pimp listening to one of the women, but she listened. Well, basically he listened to her and he was like, okay, stay, you can only stay for this amount of time. And there's another woman that lives in the house who also works for Uncle Earl, and she is a bit feisty, she's got attitude, she just can't stand Uncle Earl. Well, she always has something to say. She's beautiful. They're literally, all the women in this house are absolutely beautiful, but they just have different things which stand out about them. Queen does say to Slim in this that Uncle Earl hasn't always been like this, so he hasn't always been a pimp. She states that he went to the war, so he kind of did service for his country and came back very different. I think when someone comes back from war different, you know that it's usually something has changed, usually mentally, if not a physical change that we can see, something mentally. So he's not the same person, and I think Uncle Earl seems a little volatile. I can't put my hand on what it is about him, but it's just it seems quite unpredictable. Queen and Slim go to Uncle Earl's house and they need somewhere to stay, and that's where they end up staying for a bit. Whilst they're there, Uncle Earl does say to them, like, you need to change the way you look. Basically saying you can't look the same because the media, everyone has a picture of what you look like already. So if you want to kind of escape, you're going to have to change how you look for you to get to your destination. And the destination they want to get to is Cuba. They need to get to Florida first. Slim gets his hair cut and he transforms into a complete different person, a complete different character. And then Queen also gets her hair cut off very low, and she transforms into a complete different person. For me, I feel like she became more feminine when, not feminine, but she seemed a lot more of a vulnerable kind of character when her hair got cut off, when her hair was lower. Even though I would say within their role, she's the more dominant one. You'd usually see it's the guy who takes the lead role, but I feel in this it was kind of Queen that called the shots, and Slim was the more submissive one, even though it wasn't very obvious. He kind of allowed her to take the lead, and I think understanding his character as the film goes on, I think how she is to him is perfect, because he wants someone, as he said, he wants someone that rides for him. He wants a ride or die, which I think he's happy for when she does eventually become that. I think he's happy for her to take the lead. One of the things that stood out to me is when Uncle Earl kind of went up to the car to say bye to them, and he couldn't really say bye to Queen. He couldn't just say I love you, goodbye, as you'd say, or embrace them and give them a hug. He kind of said something very awkward, to where Queen responds, I love you. And I feel like he didn't really want to show a lot of emotion in that, because I feel like that would mean that this is probably the last time he's going to see Queen, and I don't think he wants to accept this is the last time he's going to see Queen, because even though it kind of shows that they have a troubled relationship, I think she means a lot to him, and I think he means a lot to her also. We also see that Queen does say, before Uncle Earl makes them stay in the house, we also see Queen saying to him, you owe me. And I think this shows why she's such an intense character. She's not very open. She has been through a lot. I think people viewed Queen up to her going to Uncle Earl's house as an angry black woman. But then when she goes to Uncle Earl's house, we later understand that there's a lot of reasons why she's so intense, why she's so standoffish and not very open. She reveals to Slim that Uncle Earl is actually the one that killed her mother, and she was the lawyer that helped to get him off the case for killing his mother. And Slim was like, how can you represent someone who has killed your mother? Which I think a lot of people would find really hard to understand. How could you defend someone who is a murderer, someone who's murdered your mom, especially? But she said to Slim, like, I know he didn't mean it. Like, I think she had a lot of empathy for him, because she knows this person, she understands him, and with her understanding him, she was able to give him grace to actually be by his side to help him to get off that case. And she said, I know he didn't mean, I understand what he's like, and I just knew that he didn't mean to do it. And I think it's funny because Queen kind of needs that now. She is now in that position, but who is going to look at her and say, you know, I know that Queen's a good person, let her off this case? There's no one to do that for her. So I think it's a bit of a role reversal, because she's kind of she's helped someone who's done something that could be seen as awful, but now that she's in a position that she needs someone to let her off something that's awful. There's no one really there. There's no one really there to let her off that case. There's no one there to kind of to give her the empathy and the grace that she needs, or the grace that she has given. So she has taken a lot on. I feel like the characters completely transform once they've left Uncle Earl's house, because they leave his house, different haircuts, different attire, completely different. She's wearing a tiny dress, he's wearing a velour tracksuit and trainers with very low cut hair. And yeah, so the journey starts where you see them go to the car that Uncle Earl gives to them breaks down. So they go to a mechanic, and that mechanic kind of, after a few conversations, the mechanic lets them know that I know who you are. Like, I'm not blind. Like, I know exactly who you are. And he kind of shows, and again, the mechanic's black, and he kind of lets them know he doesn't agree with what they're doing, but then he still goes on to take their money. And again, he doesn't call the police or anything. He's kind of, I see what you're doing, I don't agree with what you've done, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I think that's his kind of way of doing something for them, even though he's not fond of what they've done. We see them come across so many people in the film that are really defending them and have their back and have the court are really supporting them. And one of the main characters that we see that really has their back or is really for them is that mechanic's son. And they kind of go for a walk with the mechanic's son. It's funny actually, because they meet the mechanic's son, and even though the mechanic's saying, "I'm not fond of you guys," I know that the mechanic trusts them, so he knows what the situation is, because he gives them they didn't want to leave their car with him because they didn't trust him, and he was like, "I'll give you insurance," and the insurance he gave them was his son. So even though this guy wasn't very open to them or wasn't siding what they did, he still has some form of trust to them. He knows that they're harmless. He just doesn't like it. And I guess that's what you find sometimes with like older people. All they've known is to keep quiet. They don't rebel. They don't kind of stand up for what is necessarily right. They keep quiet because that's what they've known really all in their time, to keep quiet and keep safe. So he does trust them, because you would never send your child off with two people that you believe are killers. So he sent them. He allowed his son to go with them. Again, you see that Queen and Slim has a conversation with their son, who's really, really fond of them. But he's a teenager, and he's kind of showing them that he's wanting a place to belong. He wants somewhere to belong, and he kind of wants to make history, and he wants to. It says kind of he wants to be immortal. But I think even though he's really fond of Queen and Slim, I think this child really, really misunderstands like the situation. I think that's a common thing with teenagers, kind of wanting a place to fit in, wanting to feel like they belong somewhere, and that's what we see with him. He then later goes on to, there's a street march again against the police, and his son, the mechanic's son, later goes on to shoot a police officer. It's kind of crazy in that scene, because that's the first scene we see of Queen and Slim kind of being very intimate with each other. That scene is where we see the sex scene, and it's like when they are coming together, whatever they stand for is falling apart. Within the Black community, it seems like Queen and Slim are heroes, and people hold them very high because they've done something. They've stood up to the police, which no one has ever really seen happen before. And also, I think it's so relatable. So you see, there's a bar scene when they go to a bar, and you see everyone in the bar knows exactly who they are, but they're saying, "You're safe here." Slim doesn't really have much money, but he goes to the bar to buy Queen a drink, and he's saying, and the woman in the bar just says, no, this is on the house, you're safe here. And then they're dancing and looking around, and everyone's looking at them like, like, well done, or we've got you back, you're safe here, you don't have to worry. I think a lot of people support them because they're very relatable people, they're very normal people. As in regards to police brutality, a lot of people that have been shot and killed by police are very normal, everyday people that have been killed for no reason at all. So I think a lot of people relate with them in that way, and support them and want to keep them safe as long as they can. I think one of the big contrasts in this was that couple, the white couple that Uncle Earl sent them to, that really put their life and freedom on the line to protect them, because they literally lived in the suburbs. Who would have thought that they'd have any connection to Uncle Earl at all? But I think for me, this was more about humanity and what was wrong and what's wrong and what is right. And deciding what's wrong or right is about something that we carry morally as people inside of us. Do you know what I mean? So they knew that these kids were innocent, but the law wasn't really on their side, so they also did what they could do to protect them. We also see when they're in the garage trying to get away, and that police officer comes by and sees them. And again, this is a black police officer. He is the law, so we just expect this man to kind of arrest them then and there. But he looks at them both in the car and he just says go. Just before it gets to that scene, we see that his colleague, who's a white police officer, speaks down to him, like it's kind of borderline, who is borderline racist towards him anyway. He's calling him boy and like belittling him and stuff. So what I took from it is that regardless of whatever side you stand on, whether you're a police or just a civilian, it's difficult being black. It's just difficult being black. I feel like everyone's just getting crap from every angle. So if you're a police officer and you're black, racism is still affecting you, and if you're just a civilian, racism is still affecting you. And like I said before, I feel like the black community took it as a duty to try and protect Queen and Slim the best they could. So I feel like when he saw them in that car, he thought, okay, I'm gonna let you go. He knows as well as anyone how they would have been treated, and he probably knows how that situation went down. So he didn't take it upon himself to arrest them. He let them go. We then go on to see them meet another guy. This guy is, I guess this guy's a bit more of a criminal and stuff because he's got guns, he lives in a trailer, he's literally got all gold teeth, and they don't trust him. He doesn't have like a very trusting demeanor. They were very apprehensive to go with him when he came up to them in the car. They went with him anyway, and he kind of called who he needed to call, and he was like, okay, we can get you a flight to go to Cuba tomorrow. And they're like, no, we can't wait till tomorrow, we need to go today. And he made a call again, and they were like, okay, well, the next hour then we can get you a flight. So he kind of travels with them to where they need to go. It gets them a plane, and then we come up to the final scene where we see when he brings them to the plane, it's a setup. The police officers come in, Queen and Slim are finally caught, and it's really heartbreaking. I think what's heartbreaking for me, one thing I haven't touched on, is Queen and Slim did fall in love, and what they both said. Slim said he wanted a ride or die, and Queen kind of wanted someone who was always there for her, someone who saw beyond the external but saw the parts of her that the world probably would see and turn away from. She wanted someone who could handle that and always hold her hand and be there. And we come up to that scene where they're holding hands and they look at each other because they know that they're caught now, the police is there, and the first person that the police shoot is Queen. We see the police then kill him, but it's emotional for the fact that we have this film and we see these characters who are going through this long journey, but also we see that the black community protects them a lot. We then come across another guy who is black, but his values aren't the same, which I don't know. I don't really know what to say about that. His values just aren't the same, because his values is kind of his own self. We see at the end he gets a lot of money, and I guess he could probably give a reason onto why he would choose money over people that he doesn't, because he doesn't know Queen and Slim, he doesn't owe them anything. But I think it's a mutual understanding between, I think everyone has this understanding. I guess that just doesn't align with him. For me, what I liked about this scene is that they actually died together. I can't imagine a Queen without a Slim, vice versa. The film was absolutely amazing. The cinematography, everything was absolutely amazing about it. The funeral scene was amazing as well. Like literally everyone came out. And it was just, there was a bit where we see Uncle Earl at the funeral, and he just has like a big fur coat on, he's all in black, and he just kind of stands there and he just looks down at the ground. And I just it was just all so touching. It's also touching. It's nice to see these characters come together. Queen and Slim came from complete different lives. You know, Queen came from a really difficult home where it probably shows we didn't see much about Slim's life, but we can tell that he probably came from more of a loving home, because his dad is the one that worked in the funeral home, and you can see he's the one that got them like embalmed and or whatever you call it for the funeral. Also, there's that scene when he calls his dad and he says, "Dad, like, I love you," and his dad says, "I love you back," and his dad puts the phone down on him just so that the police couldn't track him. But the characters are completely different characters. But I just see it as a love story. I know a lot of people have compared it to Bonnie and Clyde, but I don't see that at all. Bonnie and Clyde kind of had a choice in everything they did as Bonnie and Clyde. They killed, they robbed out of choice, where Queen and Slim didn't really have a choice or a privilege that Bonnie and Clyde would have. So that's a comparison I wouldn't use. But I feel like this film is absolutely amazing, and I would definitely give it a watch. This is the end of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think below, so we can talk about it. Bye.